Welcome to my channel where I do guides for ON1 Photo Raw 2019 and other post-processing softwares and some other photography related stuff. Today we are going to deal with 10 tips that I find really useful when working inside of ON1 Photo Raw 2019. So these are the 10 tips that are related to my kind of workflow. So your workflow might be something completely else, but hopefully you find most of the tips useful either way. So let's just get started here. We are now inside of the edit module. We're going to go into the browse module. And on the browse module, we are going to deal with tip number 1, and that's raw previews. So raw previews are basically previews for your raw files inside of the browse module. So whenever you load up an image and go into view the image, it either loads up an accurate preview of the raw file, if you are using raw file this is, or if you have fast activated on the raw previews, it's actually going to load up the integrated or embedded JPEG file, the embedded camera JPEG file actually. So that's good to know. For me, I'm mostly shooting landscape photos these days. I find that having accurate raw previews enabled is the most useful, because then I can cull my photos and have a kind of an accurate preview. And of course, landscape photos usually are a ton of details, a ton of different color toning, ton of different light toning. So it's really useful for me to have accurate raw previews. If you're, for example, a wedding photographer or event photographer or some kind of photographer that snaps like 5,000 images, you would of course go for fast previews. If you're a wedding photographer, you know what you are looking for and you can cull the photos really quickly. So culling photos is the process where you select what photos you want to keep and what photos you don't want to keep, or let's say the photos that you're going to edit and the photos you're not even going to touch. And of course, wedding photographers or event photographers or even product photographers can snap a ton of pictures. So they want to go for speed. Landscape photographer, I think you want to go for accurate. So you change that down here where it says raw previews and either fast or accurate. So every time you load up a new image from the folder or album, you will have accurate previews, obviously. So the previews get stored in the ON1 Photo Raw 2019 cache. So you might want to set the cache size a bit bigger, but we are going to go into that later here. So the next tip number 2, is to create metadata presets. So if we go into the browse module again and all the way out, you can see if I mark this image and hit the metadata preset box, let's say I enter a ton of keywords on the keywords there, and I have a ton of picture that fits the kind of same subject that this image is, for example landscape photos with a lot of blue in them or something like that, and you want a general kind of way to fill the keywords, you can of course create a preset. So on the metadata you go to preset and click on the drop down box there and choose save new preset, and let's say you want to name this blue hour river or something like that. Then you can select what kind of metadata you want to keep or what kind of metadata you want to fill into the preset. I usually only go for keywords, so simply deselect from all metadata and click on keywords and then simply push OK, and that preset is now available for you to fill in your other photos. So let's say if we remove everything that's in this image, now it's empty here. If I go to preset and I go to blue hour river, it's now filled inside of here, and of course that's really useful And you can also use this preset when you're importing photos into ON1 Photo Raw 2019. Okay, so let's reset this photo. That's done. So say you've edited a photo, like for example this photo, and you're pretty happy about that, but you have a lot of similar photos from, for example, the same session, the same event, or the same wedding. You might want to sync the settings from this photo to all of the other photos that you are going to edit or that are from the same session. So in this case, I'm going to select this photo. I can see that this photo is probably too bright, but we are going to select that as well and see how it turns out. So now I have the original file, or the file with the settings I want to copy, selected. That's the first image I select, and then I select the other images, and then I go down in the right corner here and I click on sync. Then it's just going to be a few seconds and it's going to paste the settings from that file into the other selected files. So the preview looks pretty ugly, but let's go in and have a check here. And that's really blue. But the general toning seems okay, so we can simply go into this image and, for example, go to saturation, set it to default, go to effects, and on the color enhancer we might want to go into the blues and lower the saturation for both blue and aqua, and that helps a lot. So that's a way to do it. You can of course also save the settings or the edit as a preset. So simply go up to settings, then go to save settings as preset, and you find where you want to save it. You can add a new category and you can name the preset whatever you want, and then you select what settings to keep. I have more details about creating presets. It should be popping up on the top right corner now. Just click that link to see how to create really nice and good presets. Now, let's say you've done this photo and you're pretty happy about it, but you're not sure if you want to go for colors or black and white or even maybe a different crop. You can select the file, right click on it, and then select to create a version. So by doing that, you're creating a virtual file with the same settings as in the original image. And if you edit the virtual file, you're not gonna edit this image. So let's, for example, say we want to go black and white with this image. We simply go into the edit module and, for example, go under effects, and under effect we go to add filter and then do black and white. And then we suddenly have both a colored version and we have a black and white version. Now, there might be times when you actually want to duplicate the file or create a physical copy of the file. So simply right click on it and select duplicate. Now, this copies the original file to a new file on your hard drive. And this is really excellent for times when you want to do completely different edits and go completely different ways, and you want to be able to add them to different albums without also importing the original file into the albums. Okay, so that's a little bit about how to work with files. Then let's say we want to go in and edit a file. Now, as you can see here, inside of this edit, we have a really cluttered view. We have the preset pane on the left side here, we have the film strip on the bottom, we have the edit pane activated on the right side, and we might actually want to remove as many disturbances as possible. That's very easy to do inside of ON1 Photo Raw. You simply go down to this button to remove the left pane. So you show and hide the left pane using this button. So if you don't need to have the preset pane up, simply click on that button. Now we still have the film strip here. We might not want to have that activated when we are inside of the edits. I usually always deactivate the film strip, and do that simply by clicking on the square here where it says switch to detail view. Doing that will remove the film strip. So now we really have removed a lot of distractions. But if you want to view the image even without the develop module, you can do so simply by going down to the right corner and click the button saying show hide right pane. Now this is very useful if you want to have no distractions at all when viewing the file. When you do a lot of edits to a photo, a really high detailed photo such as this, you might sometimes, it's not gonna be happening a lot, but sometimes when you hit export, ON1 Photo Raw 2019 might export your photo without the latest changes. This is simply because ON1 Photo Raw 2019 has a buffer, and in that buffer all of your changes are stored. So even though you see the changes on the screen, the changes might not have been saved inside the ON1 RAW file, the file that stores all of your settings. So if the buffer haven't written all of those settings and you hit the export button, it might export your photo without the latest edits. To make sure that you export with all of your changes, go out to the browse module. This is especially happening whenever you have a ton of effects on your photo. So simply go to the browse module, and now the buffer is going to write to the ON1 file, the settings file. And now simply hit the export button down in the right corner, or go to file and either do quick export or export. Now inside ON1 Photo Raw 2019 you have a lot of keyboard shortcuts available to use. So if you have a look at this image, you can see that the shortcuts highlighted in the green here is the shortcuts I use the most. These are shortcuts I use practically every day in every edit that I'm doing inside of ON1 Photo Raw 2019. And the yellow highlighted keyboard shortcuts are shortcuts that I might not use every day, but I use them often. So for me, the shortcuts in the green are the shortcuts that I try to remember. Now, this image you can find on ON1's Photo Raw 2019's homepage, but if you want this file where I have edited with the green and yellow, I'm going to link this file in the description, and I'm also going to link the PSD file so you can change around the highlights as you want. But anyway, learning keyboard shortcuts is something that really helps workflow inside of ON1 Photo Raw 2019. Okay, so you've been doing edit for a long time, and in this case this is a landscape photo and it has a lot of different toning, both in light and in colors, and it's a saturated image, especially being that it's shot in a low light situation. It's really pulling out the colors. Now, when you sit and edit a photo, you're doing the settings gradually, so you're not going to be as impacted by the edit as if you saw the photo for the first time. And this is true. There's no discussion about that. That's just a fact. So if you're in doubt, if you have over-processed your photo or not, or if something's missing, or if it's too much of something, then simply step away from the photo for 15-20 minutes or even 30 minutes, and then go back to the computer and continue the edit. I usually do this for the kind of image that you see on the screen right now, because I tend to overprocess it. I tend to go too heavy on the colors and the toning, so I need that break just to be able to see if I overprocessed or not. So this is a really golden tip that you should absolutely follow when you doing edits with a lot of details and a lot of different colors. Okay, so let's say you want to brush in some changes. You can see on the screen right now that I have a brush here, and you can see that the brush is at, yeah, it's a pretty big brush. But let's say I want to brush in some smaller details somewhere in this photo. I would need to go down on the brush size. If you want to be really quick about changing the brush size, you can either use the keyboard shortcuts for changing it. I think it's the bracket keys by default, or you can set it to be changed by the mouse wheel. So in my case, I have it on the mouse wheel because that's what I'm used to. So whenever I use the scroll wheel, I change the settings. To be able to do this, you need to go to ON1 Photo Raw 2019 menu, then you hit Preferences, and under Preferences and under General, you find Scrolling Controls. Inside here you have a few different options, so you can zoom in and out on the image if you want to, or you can pan right or left or up or down, depending if you have the shift key clicked or not. And as in my case, you can select brush size. Okay, so yeah, that's it. Let's go back into preferences because we want to set up the system usage and virtual RAM usage. So let's go to system. Under memory usage, you see system usage. I have it at 72%. That's fine from my computer. If I set it higher, it actually starts to lag and it's going to be a bit jerky. One of the reasons why that is because you're allowing ON1 Photo Raw to draw too much resources. So other software on your computer that are running in the background and services try to get system resources but can't, because ON1 Photo Raw has all of it. So under memory usage, you have system usage. I usually have it on 72%. And you also have virtual RAM usage, and maybe that could be up to 75 actually. On the top right corner now you should see a link to my video about ON1 Photo Raw and system resources. So just click that if you want to know more about resources. Anyway, under here you also have browse cache. So browse cache is all about the raw previews that we talked about earlier. I have my cache size at max, so that should be 1 gigabyte, I think. I have a large hard drive, so that's the reason I have it on max. I don't want my previews to be scratched from the cache, so I want to keep them in the cache. Something more important is the performance here. So in my case, I want to be able to pan quickly in my photos. That steals a bit system resources, but that's okay. But I definitely want to have GPU render activated. So GPU render makes sure that ON1 Photo Raw 2019 loads your video card for memory and for resources. So it's not stealing too much resources from your actual computer RAM, but it's pulling resources from your video card instead. So that's really useful. You should absolutely have that enabled. Okay, so that's actually this video. It was 10 quick tips. As I said, you can find the files that I talk about in the description. If you want to buy ON1 Photo Raw 2019, you can do so by clicking the link in the description. That gives you 10% off in price. If you like this video, just hit that thumbs up. If you want to watch more videos from me, please hit that subscribe button. That really makes me happy whenever I see a new subscriber. And thanks a lot for watching, and I hope you have some use for this video, and I hope to see you again. Thank you and goodbye.